What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Why We Love PlayStation VR. Sitting across from me this week and every week, he's the only person outside of Valve to have played Half-Life 3, and even that was all in his head. Desra.
I thought you weren't going to talk about that. Shh. Do you have any idea how thick that NDA was? God damn it.
No one's watching this. Their lawyers will never find us.
Gabe, I'm sorry.
We're not sorry.
No. And sitting across from me, of course, is Brian Paul.
And every week on Why We Love PlayStation VR, we dive into the PlayStation VR archives.
Yes.
We pick a game at random, not so random, and then we pull it out, we play it, we discuss it, and we decide whether it, deserves a little extra attention or not.
Yeah.
So, what game do we love this week?
Well, this week we love a game that was actually, well, I guess it's a pre-launch title, really, if you think about it.
Indeed it was.
And this is Bound.
Bound for Glory.
No, just Bound.
Bound in Chains.
No, just Bound.
Is this a God of War game?
No, just Bound.
Oh.
Bounder of Adventure. And if you got that, leave something in the comments.
Like some Patreon support. Patreon.com/withoutparolegames. Leave us $1 a month. And you can get more of this witty banter.
Bounder of Adventure. And I'm smokes too much.
I have no idea what you're talking about.
So you better cut down a little bit then.
I'm withdrawing my Patreon support from your channel, sir.
There's someone out there has this right now.
Someone out there is tuning out as we speak.
That's
because
true.
They're so sick of this witty banter. Bound.
Yes, Bound.
By Plastic Studios or Plastic
Demo
Scene.
Yeah.
It's an interesting thing that Plastic has done. They've created a little niche for themselves.
Oh, okay, right, yeah.
So I've known about Plastic Studios or Plastic Demo Scene for a long time.
Okay.
Because I was a PlayStation 3 guy. This guy has no idea what that is.
I know what it is.
Nope, no idea.
It's that thing with the things and the thing.
Yeah, you can put things in it too.
Yeah. There you go.
And one of the things that was in it, well, on mine anyway, was this game, I guess we can call it, called Linger in Shadows. Now, the early days of PS3 were rough going. there wasn't a lot of good stuff. Mm-hmm. We got the lesser of the multi-platform ports. Any game that was also on 360. Yep, definitely. So when something like Linger in Shadows shows up on the PlayStation Store for a whopping $3, you're like, well, this year at least it's something.
$3.
It's something. And I had no idea what to expect. And I got to say, it's been years. That thing, Linger in Shadows, came out in 2008. It was a $3 7-minute experience. Kind of a precursor to PlayStation VR, wasn't it?
That's really expensive minute. What's that ratio? It's like 50
cents a minute.
Yeah,
it's like a 900 number.
Wow.
It's pretty bad. So Linger in Shadows was interesting. I guess this sort of exemplifies what they call a demo scene.
Yeah, this is kind of in that neighborhood. We'll get to our specific reviews, but one of the things you'll hear about is like, well, the gameplay really isn't that in depth. It's kind of not meant to be, sort of. And what it does do well, and I started playing this actually, honestly, earlier today, and within 5 minutes, I sent Brian, and what did I say in the text? It's like, this is one of the most beautiful things I've ever played.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So when you compare Bound with something like the studio's first project, Linger in Shadows, it's not too far of a stretch.
Okay.
Right? It's like the studio's constantly going for aesthetic.
Yeah.
Something aesthetically pleasing, or at least aesthetically interesting. And so when Linger in Shadows isn't much of a real game, you fast forward to 2012 when they released their PlayStation Move game, Datura, which was also a 6-axis game or a regular PlayStation 3 controller. Yep. They went for more of a full game. But then
was that only one hand though?
I had two hands.
Oh, you had two hands. Sorry.
I think so. Anyway, I don't really remember. It's been a long time. 2012. That was a whopping 5 years ago. But this is a first-person adventure. Very trippy, which is a word you'll probably hear multiple times this episode. And that one lasted 90 minutes. So we're exponentially growing in length here.
That's huge. Yeah, 7 minutes to 90.
Although that was a 4-hour development time. So
Wait, what, 4-hour development?
I'm sorry. That was a 4-year
Oh,
development time. Thank you for clarifying.
I heard like hackathons where like they crank out a game like 24 hours, but 4 hours.
People out there would have killed me in the comments. So Lingering Shadows came out in 2008. Datura came out in 2012. And then 4 years after that, Bound came out, which is finally the focus of this episode. I apologize for all the rigmarole ahead of time.
Background is good. Yeah.
But in Bound is about 3 hours.
Yeah, I mean, I knocked it out in a little under that, and you can probably do it in less. But that's really not the point. In fact, actually, I was reading an article, with the interview is the word I'm looking for. Interview with the developers, and they were like, "We wanted something you could play in one sitting." That was the design
intention.
Goal. Yeah. It was also interesting. They were saying they were looking to actually aim a game at kind of older gamers. People who are like, I've done these things before. I don't want to solve the 10,000s puzzle. I just want something that's going to look amazing and be an interesting experience. Yeah. And so if we end up with is a platformer that's somewhere between an art project and a game. So yeah, and that's pretty much I guess the best description of it.
Yeah, I mean maybe throw in Walking Simulator in there because they have compared this game to games like Firewatch, Journey, and then somebody threw out an Eco comparison.
Yeah, well, actually, the designers, they were inspired by Eco. That was one of the things. They were like, oh, can we do Eco, but without so much of the thinking?
Or apparently the hand-holding.
Yeah.
The literal hand-holding.
Yeah. So it is, it's weird. Like, saying this like this, it sounds like I'm down on this. This is an amazing game.
Yeah.
This is one of the, every moment of the game is just like, oh, I want that as my desktop. Oh, wait, no, I want that as my background. No, I want that. Okay, finally you give up, and it turns out they know how amazing this looks because they actually have a photo mode. You hit the, what's the name for that crazy thing in the middle?
The touchpad?
The touchpad. You and your Sony people. You touch that.
He doesn't know what a PS3 is, kids. He's never heard of one until this moment.
Okay. I'm trying to think of something clever, but no, I wasn't a Sony guy.
Nope.
Anyway, so you hit the touchpad and it opens up this photo thing where you really have complete control. You can change the angle, change the perspective. You can change the focal length. I mean, anything you can imagine.
There's a metric ton of Instagram filters.
Yeah. And it's just, you do this and you kind of stop the game where you think it was okay, but if it wasn't quite perfect, that's fine. You totally change where the camera was, zoom in, zoom out, advance the next couple frames in the game. And you can take those shots. So they really, it's like, we know this is beautiful. We know it's so beautiful. We want you to examine every single frame of this game, and rightfully so.
It's a little ridiculous because it is beautiful, but when this game launched, it launched before PlayStation VR was even a thing.
Yeah, that's what's really interesting. This is actually a VR port.
Yeah.
Which should be like warning bells, because at the very least the gameplay should be awful, but on top of that, it should make everyone who even thinks about playing this game wretchedly nauseous, and it doesn't.
And you got to figure that somewhere in development, VR became a focus because this game launched on August 16th, 2016.
Yeah,
and then PlayStation VR came out just under 2 months later.
Yeah.
So it wasn't like it was I can't imagine anyway that it was a 2-month rush job to port it over. But when it launched on PlayStation VR, it's not exactly the same game we're playing now.
No.
And by the way, it's free right now.
Yes.
If you're watching this anywhere near the release of this episode, it's free on PlayStation Plus.
Yeah.
Go download it now. Should we?
Yep.
But when it came out on October 13, 2016, it wasn't quite the same game.
No.
I hated it. I have to be completely honest.
Really? Okay.
I didn't review it. I tried it. I was like, what's everyone raving about? This is not fun. And here's the reason why. Static camera angles.
Oh, right. Okay.
You start the thing up.
Yeah.
Your character runs. I think, I forget how you even switch camera angles. I think you hit the right analog stick.
You hit the right analog stick and it kind of tracks you to the character.
Oh, it's just painful. Painful, not fun, not interesting. And then word came out that Plastic was going to patch this thing, and that they're going to create a smooth camera with camera options and all sorts of different ways to prevent motion sickness within that. And I was skeptical because I was like, oh, Bound, that game's not very good, and I'm not very interested in it. And holy crap, what a difference this camera makes.
Yeah. Yeah, the level of control they give you over this, they went from, okay, we're going to give you one way to have this because we're kind of scared of you getting sick, so we're going to lock everything down. This is your only option, to, oh, here's 4 basic setups for camera style, 2 statics, 2 smooth scrolling, and then even within that, I mean, every possible thing you can change in focus, it's completely under your control.
And there's something, like, without even talking about how beautiful the game world is, because I'm sure we'll do that, there's something very beautiful about a camera that's following your gigantic ballerina, modern dancer, ballet. Anyway,
Maria Udad.
Thank you. Following her around, and the camera is just like swooping and panning, and you have control over the camera, and this is all happening in VR. And I've got to say, if you've ever played Marvels, you'll know that third-person action. Hey, Marvels is great. Third-person action adventure games are totally doable, but this game does it with style.
Yeah,
like a whole lot of style.
There's one thing I forgot to mention. I will kind of rewind to the back.
That you love Marvels.
No.
You finally came around.
No.
You love Marvels.
No. I don't.
All right, rewind.
So let's say you have the one friend in your life who's like, you know what, yeah, VR is fine and all that, but I want to play my regular games. I had the perfect example of the difference between a flat game and a VR game. When you fire this up, at least when I fired it, if you download the version that's on the PlayStation Store now, there's kind of a little opening vignette, and it starts out in 2D. Okay. And you actually have to, like, you watch basically the car drop someone off at the beach.
Right.
And then a menu pops up, and then you can choose the options and go to VR. Now it starts on the seaside, and I haven't really talked about this, but one of my favorite places I've ever lived. I lived in Maine for a while, kind of near the beach. And some of my favorite memories are in a neighborhood like where this happens, where you're just kind of walking around. There's the street right next to the beach, and so the car pulled up and kind of the flat screen. Like, oh, this is nice. It kind of reminds me a little bit of Ocean Park. Then I was like, oh, I have to put it in VR. I hit VR, and I was like, oh, this is okay. Now I'm actually at Ocean Park. I'm actually next to the ocean there. And it was just that subtle, like, okay, this is a cute little screen to, oh, I'm really here now.
Yeah.
And there aren't many experiences, usually in most kind of VR titles that have both options, there's like a load screen or something like that where you have to go when you wait. It's just literally like snapping your fingers, going from a flat screen to the VR. So your friend who's still skeptical about VR stuff, just slap this on his head for that and say, see, this is what we're talking about.
And then give him 2 Move controllers and make him play super hot.
Yeah.
That'll sell him. But so we're talking about this game, but we haven't actually talked much about the game. Okay. We're talking about a ballerina. We're talking about like kind of trippy environments. But then we're talking about a beach. So let's talk about how this game actually gets all put together. You start off on a beach.
Yeah, you're a pregnant lady on the beach. Which is, hey,
Poor girl.
Well, actually, you're not the pregnant lady necessarily. You are watching her. Which is...
I controlled her.
Yeah, I mean, you do control her, and yeah.
I told her where to go. Right. She went.
So which is actually right off the bat, like, high five for diversity there. Like, seriously, name a game with a pregnant lady as the main character.
Thankfully, so few.
Yeah.
No offense to all those pregnant ladies out there.
But it is kind of a framing device for the rest of what's happening. And there is... Yeah, it definitely plays with this metaphor. The stuff that's happening in sort of the game world is maybe your character working through some childhood trauma of some kind.
Yeah, it definitely seems that way.
Yeah, so you see her on the beach. She's got this book. You look at the pages. That page is the level. You play through the level. The dialogue from the characters in the levels kind of corresponds to what's happening there. And then it ends with these vignettes of what we can only assume are the pregnant lady at the beach as a child and the kind of trauma that was happening as she was a child. And that cycle sort of repeats throughout the game.
Yeah, but for a majority of the game, once you enter the level, there's almost no correlation. I mean, it's all, they talk about metaphors and about how the different characters represent different things and how different environments represent different things. But if you take it at face value, there's almost no correlation between the girl on the beach and the girl you're playing as in the game. You're walking around, dancing around. There's a dance button combinations of buttons make you do different dances.
We really need to just underline and accept like the character animation on the princess is astonishing.
Yeah.
I mean, just the tiny little move she makes, even when you let go of the controller for a moment. She just does like dancer stretches. Bends down, grabbing her calves, or just the way she holds and carries herself. Very typical platformer things like, kind of inching along a very thin rail instead of just, going up the wall and going like this. She just I don't know. She does these little twirls, and everything is so beautiful, and
it's all very elegant.
It absolutely elegant and graceful. Instead of there are times where you have to climb a rope instead of just doing this. She's doing like the Spanish rope stuff. If you've ever seen like the dancers and contortionists where they have the big, a silk cloth, so they climb up and down. She's doing the same motions to go up and down those ropes. Every action she does is so beautifully animated that it's very disappointing when you're given the controllers and you have like 4 buttons you can hit to make her do 4 things.
Yeah, it's a little bit strange because there is a bit of a disconnect between the controls and what's happening on screen. I don't want to say there's any kind of delay or any lag. It's just I think their ambition to make this game as beautiful as possible unfortunately subsequently took some of the control out of your hands. It feels, I hate saying this, but the controls feel stiff.
They do.
Even though none of the movement on screen is stiff at all.
Yeah, and that's exactly. I kind of was thinking about like the opposite of this is like Mirror's Edge. When you get good at Mirror's Edge, you feel like you are just flowing and everything's going and fantastic. Now, I can only imagine if you could look at a third-person perspective of what your character looks like, it probably looks awful and stupid and clunky.
Right.
Because the way they have to animate, just so you can see your hands. Well, actually, if you saw what that character looked like, they'd look bizarre and weird with their hands, sticking out here. Yeah. This is kind of the polar opposite of that. Like, the character moving looks incredible, but you just feel very clunky and, It's not that the character's not doing what you want it to, you just wish that you felt as good controlling it as she looks on screen.
Yeah, it's a platformer, but it's a platformer where maybe the platforming controls could have been a little bit more refined. We were talking earlier, you mentioned that there are certain ledges you can fall off of and certain ledges you can't fall off of, like the invisible walls.
Yeah.
It just doesn't seem to, the game doesn't seem to follow any of its own rules at any point. And often, I got to be totally honest here, as much as I was in love with the visual style, I got lost a lot, especially when I was like loading a saved game.
Yeah.
They drop you in somewhere and go, and I go, oh, okay, I'm supposed to go this way. And I go and I run to a dead end, or I climb up a rope that I've already come down. And there's no real sense of direction of where you're supposed to be going.
That is one common refrain in some of the other reviews I was reading. Like, I didn't spend much time playing the 2D version of it because why? But they did say the way the 2D version is framed, when you enter a space, the camera angles are pretty much lock you into showing you where you need to go. Whereas
interesting.
When we're a little more free in VR, we can kind of do things they never intended and end up going around into blind corners that weren't part of it. But that does lead to something else. This is a short game. There's actually a lot of stuff hidden. There are hidden levels, hidden rooms that you like walk up to a wall and actually go through it.
Yeah.
And there's a whole other little room. And for your trophy hunters, my goodness, there's a ton of stuff in here. I'm definitely going to want to play through again and find more of these hidden rooms.
And that's interesting. You say you walk up to a wall and you kind of go through it.
Yeah.
And the reason that this wall, it's not transparent, it's not a fake wall. Everything sort of moves in this game and pulsates. And some things move when you get closer to them, and some things open up for you, and it's a very unique look. And but what it always reminds me of is like Tearaway on acid, and it's just a whole world of pulsating cardboard boxes.
The other thing is too, they do that, and it solves a problem that a lot of other kind of games have sort of done sort of clunky ways to do this. So it's third person, right? But you're moving through 3D space. There's a lot of times when your camera will be there'll be a wall between you and your character.
Right.
Other games, they kind of like fade out the wall,
or clips through and it looks horrible.
Clips through. This is just like, oh no, the way this game works is the whole world's constantly malleable and falling apart. So if like you're going through here and the wall just has a hole in it, that's okay. That's the rules of this world.
Right.
Walls happen as your character's walking, like just chunks of the ground fall off from beneath her. So it's a really neat way to kind of solve that problem and also make it fit in with the narrative structure of the story. So well done.
So, I mean, you dance in this game.
Yeah. If you want to.
There's enemies, sort of. Yeah,
that they're called fears. So if you're looking later, they call them fears. And actually, you don't really have a. It took me a while to figure this out. There's not a do this level, this level, this level.
Yeah.
Again, and the framing thing is the woman at the beach. She has this journal, and you can go from page to page. And depending on which pages you do first, it does slightly change the other pages. So you might not have, if you conquer a certain fear in this page, you may not have those enemies to deal with in the other pages.
Interesting.
So it definitely rewards a little bit of kind of playing it different ways. Read one article where the creators said there's over 200 different ways to make your way through the game.
Wow. So. It's certainly an intriguing game. It's certainly a visually stunning game, especially for free. You should be checking this out and using it as a visual showpiece for your PlayStation VR headset. As far as an actual game goes, it's a little bit lacking. I didn't feel as though I was conquering any challenges. I was sort of just finding my way from the beginning of the level to the end.
Yeah.
And then when it was over, I was like, well, what's my next level?
Yeah.
In that said, we should probably rate this sucker.
Mm-hmm.
Now, currently, it's free.
Yes.
This video will be around long after it's free.
That's correct.
So what's this game, $20?
$20 is, yeah.
Playable in or out of VR.
Mm-hmm.
Visually stunning.
Yes.
3 hours long at best. With reasons to go back and explore more.
Did we talk about the speedruns?
We did not talk about the speedruns.
Okay, so
this is probably a selling point.
Yeah, if you beat it the first time, a couple really cool things happen. One, it unlocks a speedrun mode, which doesn't just, put a stopwatch up. It actually gives you crazy control over it. So you can throw up ghosts of your previous runs. You can control which enemies show up and which ones don't. You can I think you can even control where in the level you start. So it's just like, this little section, because if you're trying speed runs, depending on the game you're playing, it's like, I have to load here, play this whole thing. This bit at the end is where I'm actually having trouble. Well, apparently, with this, you can actually just go to that chunk, practice that, and then go back and reload. So,
nice.
Good on you there. On top of that, in the photo mode, you can do those filters we talked about.
Right.
Apparently, and I need to go double check this, but let's say you use the black and white filter, okay, to take your picture. Once you've beaten the game, it unlocks the ability to then apply that filter to the entire game.
Pretty crazy.
Yeah, so you can completely change the visual style of the game you just played. Yeah. So it's just, for a game where the visual aspect is 99.9% of the gameplay, having that much control and change over the visual aspect definitely adds to the replayability.
So now it's even a bigger deal.
Yeah. I would say, so we'll go through our ratings.
Yep.
So number one, of course, is yes, you must buy this. Just drop everything. If you have a PSVR, this should be in your library. Absolutely. Two is it's okay if it's on sale or free. Go ahead, pick it up, but you're not missing anything. And three is no, do not buy this. Don't let your friends buy it. Don't let anyone you know buy it. These people should not be rewarded.
Yeah, what are you thinking? And again, if it's free, download it.
Yeah.
Just from what we said alone, it's a very cool visual showpiece.
I would say if you're the kind of person who's interested in the exploration of VR for trying out new things or looking at games new ways, or if you have a real eye for graphic design and visuals, absolutely. This is a must buy. I wish I had known about this before. And also, you know what? Don't look at any gameplay trailers or footage or anything like that other than, that stuff here. Just play this game cold. If you're like, no, I want a really intense platformer, I want a game experience, this probably isn't for you. So for me, the kind of person I am, oh my God, yes, I want to buy this. I have friends who are dancers. I'm going to strap this to their head and make them play this. But yeah, this gets, for me, it's a 1.
I thought you were going to say I'm going to strap this to their head and make them dance.
Well, they probably will too.
Be pretty phenomenal. We need to tape that.
Cindy will feel jealous. Yeah.
This for me, 100%, absolutely, no question about it. Not a doubt in my mind, it's a 2. And here's why.
Yeah.
Because it is beautiful, but as a game, it's just, there's just not a lot there. It's if you just take it and you're not interested in like figuring out what the metaphors are and about this girl's history and her story and her relationships, then there's not a whole lot left.
Yeah.
It's just a very cool, trippy world, and most of the levels, they all kind of have like the same look to them.
Well, there's variation, but
there are certainly variations, but it's a very, very solid 2. But you know, if you're like any of the people that Des talked about, you know, if you just really need to see the coolest visuals that your PlayStation VR can demonstrate, well, then this is something you need to check out. And seriously, especially if it's on sale, $10 at any point, I would consider that more than a fair price.
I'll say this: if you want a hammer, this is a fantastic hammer. Okay, this is a great hammer, the best hammer you're going to buy. But if you want a screwdriver, it's still a hammer, right? So if you're looking for a screwdriver, you don't want this.
This metaphor is more convoluted than the game.
Right. Well, you know, it's if you're looking for this really actually awesome, intense platformer, that's not this game. Yeah. Okay. But if you're looking for a really interesting artistic expression of motion, of color, of, you know, early 20th century modern art, then this is absolutely what you want to check out.
Also, if you smoke a lot of pot, it's a 1.
Yeah. Well, I'll take your word for that.
All right, you guys. I think that pretty much concludes another episode of Why We Love PlayStation VR.
Oh, yes. And one last thing before we finish off. Sorry. Yes. Brian's AMA was such a big hit that apparently there's been requests for the rest of us to do one, and specifically me. So thanks for the request on Twitter. So if you'd like to ask me any questions that I will answer on my next Litterbox episode, you can either go to the Patreon page. Brian will have a post on there, or you can just hit me up on Twitter, just at Dezrah, Dezrah, and you can ask me any questions on there. And you don't have to be a Patreon subscriber to ask me questions, but you do have to be one to hear the answers.
That is true.
So, you know.
So head on over to patreon.com/withoutparolegames and hook us up with $1 a month, and you can see, well, at this point, it's like 30 episodes of the Litterbox, where we sit around, we talk to you about different stuff. Yeah, I can't believe we've been doing this long.
That's crazy.
And yeah, there's a new one every single week. If you're ever like craving some Without Parole videos late on a Sunday night, well, one goes up every single Sunday night at midnight.
Yeah.
All right, make sure you comment below and let us know what other games you want us to talk about on this fantastic, fantastic show. Make sure you also click like, because we don't seem to get enough of those on this show. I'm not going to speculate as to why.
Yeah.
Because I'll just make myself
Nobody
sad.
likes us. Everybody hates us.
Guess I'll go eat worms. What's the next line? I always screw it up. Big, fat, slimy ones?
Oh, gosh. I don't know. All I think is the Kids in the Hall sketch.
Itsy bitsy fuzzy wuzzy worms. All right, you guys. Thank you for watching. Tune in next week. Patreon. Des. Brian.
Bye.
Bye.